Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we're going to have several layers that we're talking about this time. We're going to be talking about to a very successful businessman who started a law firm, actually several law firms now, in an area that we don't talk about a lot. And it is something that is a very important topic. And so that's part of why we want to talk about this, is to kind of demystify, destignify all those various things and get people talking, because it is a very important subject. So please join me in welcoming Mark Astor to our program today. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Deb, how are you? So nice to see you. Thank you for having me as a guest. So nice to be here.
Great. I love it. Now, you are here in the States, even though you grew up in England. Am I correct?
I did. I grew up in the United Kingdom. I moved to the United States in 1987. So I've spent 2/3 of my life here. So I feel very American and proud of it too.
Good, good. Accents are funny, right? I'm from Colorado, so I don't sound like I am a Southerner, unless I'm saying, well, bless your heart, because I've learned on that one, right? And I do get a y'all in every once in a while.
I love that.
Well, let me tell people about you, and then we will jump into this. So Mark Astor has been an attorney since 1994, beginning his career as a Palm Beach County Assistant State Attorney, where he served as chief of 2 county court divisions, mouthfuls, and later handled felony cases ranging from misdemeanors to capital murder. He is admitted to the Florida Bar, the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida, the District of Columbia Bar, and the Massachusetts Bar, where he established a Boston office. Mark holds a BA from the University of Michigan, a JD from Nova Southeastern University, and an LLM from American University. In 2016, he founded Drug and Alcohol Attorneys, followed by co-founding Astor Simovitch. I did not say that right.
No, you did good. You did good.
It's one of those you sound out right. Law with his wife, Audra, in 2017. The firm is dedicated to helping families navigate substance use and mental health crises. In 2020, he launched Baker Act Attorneys. We're going to talk more about what that means, focusing on protecting individuals' rights within Florida's mental health system. So outside of law, you do have a life, and you teach Krav Maga, and you prioritize physical fitness. So again, Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Deb. So good to be here.
Well, you have had quite the career, and so tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, it's been a real journey for me. I turned 59 in January, and I feel
Just
like
a baby.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't feel that way, but I appreciate the sentiment. And I feel like I've just started to hit my stride. It's taken me a long time to get my life, both personally and professionally, on the right track. But just to go back a little bit, in 1994, I was hired as an assistant state attorney. So I spent the first 5 years of my legal career as a prosecutor in Palm Beach County. The first 2 years I lived at home with my parents, because when you're a government lawyer, you don't make much money, but I didn't do it for the money. I did it for the experience.
Yes.
And I tried 200 jury trials in 5 years,
Wow.
which is an extraordinary amount of trials. I mean, I was always in trial. And after 5 years, I was just about done. But the last year and a half, I was in a felony trial unit. So that meant I was trying, second and first degree felony trial cases, and as you mentioned, a couple of capital murder cases. But when you get out of law school, and I had interned actually as a law student with the state attorney's office in 1993, and I was just gung ho, right? Let's put all the bad guys in prison. And when you're a prosecutor, you yield considerable power. So I started to notice something that really stuck with me, which was that I was starting to see the same faces repeatedly. And what I realized was that a lot of these people, especially when I was still in county court, had behavioral health issues. Now, today here in Florida, we have what I call diversionary courts, which are courts like drug court, mental health court, veterans court, specialty courts designed for certain specific kinds of cases. And the idea is we get somebody to go through treatment who's been arrested and charged with something, they successfully complete, and then the charges get dropped and they can move on. And the idea is we hope, right, that if they've done treatment, possibly for the first time, that they don't come back again. Well, in the 90s, we didn't have those courts. And even today, the intent, for lack of a better word, motto in our criminal justice system is to punish first and rehabilitate second. Well, in the 90s, we didn't have these diversionary courts. If we're looking to punish first and rehabilitate second, and there's no option for rehabilitation, then eventually someone's just going to get locked up for as long as we could possibly do that. So that was my first real experience. Now, I left the office in 1999. I did criminal defense work for a number of years. I made a lot more money and I was completely miserable. I got married when I was 34, so that's 25 years ago, and I was divorced a year later. I was very immature, and my wife was considerably younger than me, and frankly, just drank too much, and I couldn't take it. And I was not a good husband, so it wasn't her. I don't place the blame on her. Right. I was not good. I was not fit to be a husband at that point in my life. I wasn't nearly mature enough. But anyway, I was divorced a year later, and I really tried to find some purpose in my life. So in 2004, I went back to school for a year, got my master's in law. I also worked on a presidential campaign for a whole year, which was an incredible experience. I started off as a volunteer, ended up becoming, part of the legal team, and I was also part of the advance team. So the last 2 months of the campaign, I was with either the presidential or vice presidential candidate every weekend. It was It was insane. But my candidate didn't win, so no job. Right?
That is the problem when you work on a campaign.
You know what? I don't think people realize that presidential campaigns are pretty much run by people who are of college age, right? You might not see those people on TV, but the back end, because I was in campaign headquarters in DC, so college kids. Right. Remarkable, right? It's all young people. They have
time to volunteer. They're young. They're energetic.
Yeah, I mean, even when we went into either the Senate or the House, it's still full of young people. I remember going to lunch one day. I think it was in the House cafeteria. It was full of like college age people. It was amazing. I felt pretty old even back then. But so I had to come home. And in 2010, so I was back home for several years, involved in various family businesses, which I did not enjoy. And in 2010, I took what I had left from the '08 crash and I went off to California for 3 years. And I basically spent 3 years doing things that the single guy would enjoy doing.
You sowed your wild oats, shall we say?
Those had been sowed way before I got to California, but apparently it's not the old saying, is the grass any greener? It's just a different patch of grass.
True.
So I did enjoy myself, but I also took the California bar exam twice while I was out there and failed it twice, which was a bit of a kick in the ego for me. So after 3 years there, when I was out of money, I came home. So I did study for the California bar one more time, and I actually studied for it at a local library here in Boca, where I live. I flew back, took the exam, got within a percentage point and failed it. And I studied for the Florida bar for 3 weeks. I studied for the California bar for a year and still couldn't pass it.
Wow.
And so my ego was pretty bruised, but friends and family were saying to me, you're not supposed to be in California. You're not supposed to be in California. Yes. And then I met somebody that completely changed the direction of my life. So I got invited to a breakfast meeting one day. It was a 7:30 breakfast meeting, and I was told that there was a gentleman presenting down there who taught lawyers all about the business of being a lawyer, which is something they don't teach any law student at any law school anywhere in the country. They don't teach anything about business. They barely teach us enough law to get through the bar exam.
But marketing and bookkeeping and hiring.
None of that stuff. None of that stuff. Systems, policies, procedures, all of that stuff. None of it. They teach us none of that stuff. So this gentleman, his name is John Robbins. I went down to watch him to present, and he talked all about the business side of being a lawyer to about 20 lawyers. and they looked at him like he had three heads because, of course, lawyers have a horrible God complex. We know everything.
Right.
Even the stuff that we don't know, we really do know. We just
You're not
aren't
going to
going to tell
admit
you
it.
that.
Yes.
We're not going to admit it. Now, that really resonated with me because I came from an entrepreneurial background. My dad had left school at 14 and my mother left school at 16. So going to law school was a really big deal in my family. And my father built businesses. Some worked, some didn't. Some made money and some crushed him. And so basically what happened was I heard him speak and I begged him for a job and he hired me. So I spent a year learning all about the business side of being a lawyer. But what I didn't realize when I went to work for this company was at their very core, what they really are is a personal growth company for lawyers. This is the Tony Robbins of the legal profession.
Okay.
And during that year, of course, I learned all about the business side of being a lawyer. But I also learned two other very important things. Number one, the reason I had failed both personally and professionally is because I'd failed to take 100% responsibility for my decisions, right? If you constantly date the wrong people, right, then you can't be upset when you don't have anybody in your life that you really connect with. And the other thing that I realized was that if I was going to practice law, because by that time I was like, okay, I'm ready to not only practice law, but I want to do my own thing. I had to find a group of people that I could really help, because when I'd been a prosecutor, when I'd been, prosecuting violent felony offenders and I had the victim of a crime or I had the family of a decedent, if it was a murder case, there was tremendous personal satisfaction in getting those families some justice. And I had close family members and friends who had those issues. So in February of 2016, just over 10 years ago, I sat myself down in that very same library that I'd studied for the California bar exam. And I took my laptop, I made an Excel spreadsheet, and I called anybody and everybody that I could think of. I hadn't lived in Florida in 3 years. I hadn't practiced law in 5, at least. And I just started smiling and dialing. And I got really cheap business cards made of Vistaprint. I ran around to treatment centers, handing them out, telling people who I was. And it took 14 months before anybody sent me the kind of cases that we get pretty much on a daily basis now. So in the meantime, I took criminal cases, I took family law cases. I represented a student athlete here at a university in Florida who got himself in a bit of hot water with a female student. And in 2017, I finally had enough money to get a small office. 11 months after I opened up that office, so in January of 2017, my father unexpectedly passed away.
Aww.
And 2 days after that, I had a family member that fell off the proverbial wagon and got sucked into Florida's mental health system. So it was crazy times for me. And I was really struggling, well, probably emotionally and financially. But I just buckled down because I had no choice. And in 17, I met my wife, my now wife. She had practiced guardianship law for about a dozen years in Massachusetts when she was married to husband number one and came back home to Florida after they got divorced. And for the next 6 years, it was just the two of us doing everything: sales, marketing, meeting with clients, drafting pleadings, running to court. I mean, I was driving 25,000 miles a year. So we did that for 7 years. And then has only been the last 3 years where we've added staff. So we're now a team of 15 people.
Wow.
The company that I worked for 2 years ago, we actually went back as a client. They helped us to restructure the law firm. And last year we had our single best year ever. And we're off to the races again this year. So, I mean, that's the Reader's Digest version of the last, 30 plus years of my life.
I love it because you talk about ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
And of course, one of the things that jumped out at me when I was reading your information, I am a marketing person. And we are told niche, niche, niche. You cannot serve everybody. And you mentioned that you had family members who, had issues. And that was kind of why you started really focusing on mental health and issues like that.
Yeah, I mean, the main focus was really on sort of alcohol and recreational drug use. And what happened was when I started researching and I realized there was this one specific statute on the books, which we still use, that I could use to basically put those people in treatment. Now, at the time, there were only two lawyers in the state that were using it. One lawyer was a family lawyer who was north of me, and one lawyer was a lawyer who was south of me, and he sued nursing homes. And see, they had a bit of a monopoly on it. The guy that was south didn't go north. The guy that was north didn't go south. And
And you are in the
this is
middle.
this is what they did. Shh, don't tell anybody because we're making too much money. Well, see, one of the marketing tools I use, because I'd learned this from my boss, was to make videos and go on social media. So that's what I did. And I started getting calls from people who said, "What's this new statute? We've never heard of it." Well, it's been on the books in one, shape or form since 1993. Well, that ticked off the guy down south, and he went and registered the fictitious name to my website and started sending me threatening emails,
Because
shut
he
it
knew
down.
how to do that.
So I said, if you think you can shut me down, bring it on. Let's go.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's been 10 years now. I don't have, I would say that I'm cordial with that lawyer at best. We've done battle in the courtroom. He got a little bit more respect for me when I wiped the floor with him the first time I was in the courtroom with him. But it's been a constant butting of heads because, I ruined his little monopoly. Well, that's just too bad. I'm here to help people and save families. And by the way, since I opened up my office, there have been other lawyers coming along, doing certain aspects of what we're doing, trying to copy us, taking stuff off my website. I mean, what am I going to do? Tell them they can't put food on the table? There's plenty of people that need help.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. This is an area where there is an excess of people you can help.
Yes. So, I mean, in one way, my pride's a little bruised when people start copying what we do, but I also appreciate that.
Yeah, your ego's like, whoa.
Yeah, hold on a second. So my wife said, well, now you know how he felt when you opened up, out of the library and started taking food off of his plate. So I get it, but that's fine. I mean, there's more than enough people, as you said, Deb, that need help. So it is what it is. And, we continue to push forward and have really unique resources available for our clients, and I think what makes us unique amongst other things is there are 3 statutes here in Florida that allow us to do what we do. And we are the only law firm that operates under all 3 and is an expert in all 3. And because of my experience in the criminal justice system, because some of the people that we work with do get arrested, understanding how the criminal and civil worlds, intersect,
Right.
I think gives us a very unique perspective on being able to help these people.
Right.
So, like you said, I mean, the goal here is to become, a master of one and not a jack of a bunch, right?
Right.
So that's what we do, and we're constantly, we're constantly trying to figure out how do we bend the law just a little bit so we can help people, right? Obviously, operating within the ethics rules, because we are bound by certain ethics rules, which are important, right? Because you don't want to violate those. But the goal here is to help people, because if you can help their loved one, you can save the family. That's why the mission statement is, saving families, right? Because it's a family disease. It's destroying the entire family.
Yeah. When someone commits a crime, for example, they're not just them. They've got mom, dad. There are other family members. There's all sorts of people that, I always, that is kind of one of the things that makes me quizzical is, when you hear that someone has done something horrible, I always think, wow, I wonder what their parents think. I'm from Colorado, and one of the first big things that I really thought that about was Columbine. And, and I remember thinking, these were kids. Yeah, they were high school kids. And the first thing that you wanted to do was obviously blame the parents. And, that there is that. But I also thought, how do they live with that? I mean, that just, and yeah, I mean,
Maybe they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and and that is the challenge, is, and I love that you're not just helping the one person. You're helping as many in the family as you can.
I mean, that's the goal. So.
Yeah. I mean, there are that on occasion, there's somebody who really is the true loner, but no, they have a family. And in many cases, they were brought up in loving homes, in many cases not, which, contributed to it. But I think one of the things that I always think is there's, the mental health aspects. There's got to be at least something that's there, that made them, I mean, obviously there are things like schizophrenia and, and addiction, right? They don't choose to be an addict, but then they have to feed that addiction. And so then they do turn to crime. But you also, you help those who are, the addicts whose parents are like, we can't, no, we've got to take over guardianship.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, Deb, because sometimes the dilemma that we face, when we're speaking to parents, and we had a call just yesterday from a dad. Actually, he was looking to put his spouse into treatment, and when we talked to him, his response to us, well, she's never going to get better until she decides to. And I mean, I know that you're a cancer survivor. I had my own scare just a couple of months ago for the second time in 5 years, so I can somewhat understand. That is a disease, if left untreated, will in all likelihood kill you.
Right.
And behavioral health issues, as a general rule, are the same, right? So if somebody said to you, well, Deb, you made the decision to have the cancer, so shame on you. I mean, you look at a right. I mean, anybody with any rational sense would look at that person and say, you're a jerk. That's the silliest thing we've ever heard, right? Well, it's the same when it comes to behavioral health.
Yes.
And just like any other disease, there's also a strong genetic component to it. So when you can appreciate the fact that it's not a conscious decision and that it is a disease, now you can say, well, okay, they didn't do something wrong, neither did I.
Right.
So now let's talk about how do we overcome this? How do we experience recovery as opposed to remission, right? How do we experience recovery? That means treatment, whatever that treatment modality looks like. And when you can appreciate that, then you can say, okay, all right, how do I get the person there? Because when it's a behavioral health issue, part of the disease is, as a rule, number one, they are not able to acknowledge the fact they have a problem.
Right. Denial is big.
They're in denial. And number two, they are not capable of making the decision to go into a clinically appropriate facility, take your meds, and do it for long enough so that they can experience recovery and be able to maintain it on their own.
Right.
And so the commitment that we're asking families to make is, your loved one cannot make that, your wife, your husband, your adult child cannot make that decision to save themselves. Let's talk about what options may or may not be available so that somebody else or something else can make that decision for them. Because if that decision is not made, the consequences can be severe.
Right. It can lead
You
to
want to have
death.
that conversation.
Right.
Yes, it can lead to death, and it does. And unfortunately, when we speak to families that maybe we spoke to, 6 months ago, a year ago, who for whatever reason, and it's a no judgment zone when you call us, decided not to take action, and we find out they lost the person. Heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking
Or they
conversation.
committed some horrible crime or something. Yeah.
Or they went to prison. That's possible too. And one of the options I tell the family is, you could do nothing. You can hope that the state steps in, either through the criminal justice system or the mental health system. Neither of those, I think, are viable options. So if you ever get them back, you won't like what you see. Or the last option is, you make the decision and get the authority to make the decision to, for lack of a better word, make them go to treatment long enough and in a clinically appropriate setting so that you can rid them of this thing, and then they can basically step back into their own shoes and they can live a productive life.
Right.
But it takes a serious commitment of time, energy, and money. And it's not for everybody.
Right. Well, and I'm guessing, and this is a total guess, but based on, some of my own knowledge, I'm guessing that one of the things they say the most to you is, but they'll hate me.
Oh my God. That is that is maybe number one, right? They'll hate me. And my response to them is, I know that this looks like your child, your wife. It sounds like them. It is not them. A behavioral
It is their addiction. It is their mental issues.
Yes. Behavioral health basically hijacks the person's brain. So right now, as you correctly pointed out, they are not running the show. Right. So if they're not running the show and they have a disease that's running the show, which thrives in chaos and instability and adversarial settings, that the disease is going to fight like hell not to go into treatment.
He wants to stay
That's
in
the
control.
antidote. That's the antidote.
Right.
So that's what we do.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well, and I guess that my response would be, you know, well, they can hate you and still be alive.
yeah, and the hate will pass. It
Right.
does,
Yeah, they
right?
will realize, oh my God,
Well,
I
they'll
mean,
suddenly your
mhm,
loved one will suddenly
mhm,
reappear as if by magic. I
mhm,
mean, it does.
mhm,
It happens over time,
mhm,
and all of a sudden, right? They come back, and now they don't hate you.
mhm.
But you have
And
to
they're
get through that.
grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, but you have
hmm
to get through
hmm
that first period, and
hmm
it might take 30 days, six
Oh,
days, or 90 days.
and
It
it's going to be
takes time.
brutal.
Yeah,
hmm
which is why I tell the
hmm
families, look, you have to work the family program. Good treatment centers have a
hmm
family program.
Yes.
Because if you
hmm
don't, here's what happens. And a
hmm
year from now, your
hmm
loved one is over here and they're a
hmm
completely different person.
hmm
But you're still the same family you were back here,
hmm
used to the chaos, the
hmm
instability, the
Right.
yelling, the screaming,
hmm
all of that stuff.
Yeah. Were you
And
feeding it?
if you don't do the work, you're
hmm
not going to be able to relate to
hmm
that person, and they're not going to be able to relate to you.
hmm hmm
So
Right.
we really encourage the families
hmm
to do the necessary
hmm
work. Some do
Right.
it, some don't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there is a reason there are Al-Anon, Alateen, it's a family issue, as we've been saying. And if you don't make those changes that may have inadvertently or not inadvertently led to some of the issues, then it's going to happen again. And more importantly, it might happen to other family members too.
Yeah, it's a very interesting field. It can be very satisfying and gratifying, but it can also be frustrating when you talk to a family and they, for whatever reason, just cannot make
Right.
that
hmm
commitment of time,
hmm
energy, and
hmm
resources.
hmm Right. Yeah, and just like you can't make the person go to, well, you can make the person go to treatment, but you can't, you can't make them do it, right?
Well, yes, to a certain extent, but I mean, one of the reasons to go to court and get that authority is because it creates a safety net for the family, but it also creates consequences
Mm-hmm.
for somebody. Because
Mm-hmm.
once a judge says you are going to treatment,
Mm-hmm.
the consequence of not doing that
Right.
can be jail
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
I haven't, in the 10 years we've been doing this work, I haven't had anybody yet
Mm-hmm.
who's decided that the food is better in the county jail than in a treatment center. But there's always going to be that first person who says, and I will tell you, I had a case, got a lot this time last year, where I sent a gentleman to treatment, and 3 times he was non-compliant. 3 times I went back to the judge and I said, you got to put him in jail. He's going to die. And the judge wouldn't do it. And I found out about a month ago that he overdosed and died.
Right. Right.
So while it sounds cruel or harsh to put him in jail, in reality, it may well have saved him.
Right. Well, and it sometimes really helps to have that other authority making the decisions. I know you also do some elder law work, and it's been 15 years ago or so. My parents were having some issues. My father had very severe dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever we wanted to call it, and lived in the mountains of Colorado. The closest doctor was 65 miles away in another state. you know but my mother was the most strong-willed person in the world. She was bound and determined that she was going to keep him home. She was going to take care of him. Well, I discovered that he was falling virtually every day. Now, luckily he hadn't gotten hurt, but of course my bigger fear was that he would be going down and he would take her down, and then they'd both get hurt. And so he had fallen. Now I'm an only, and they were in the hospital in Wyoming. And mom was, how soon can we get him discharged and get him home? Now I knew there was no way she was going to pay attention to me. So I went to the doctor and I went to the social worker at the hospital, and I said, what we need to talk about this. And the doctor was, well, we're going to be able to discharge him in a couple of days. And I said, you do understand where he lives? What? And I said, you're going to have him back here. You're going to have both of them, and they're going to be a lot worse. And so they said, okay. And I was very fortunate. I know I was very fortunate. They said, we will take the steps. And so they told mom, he cannot go home. He cannot do that. And so then it was no longer her decision. And she was fine with that. I mean, and that was the thing, was if she had to make that decision, she wouldn't. But when the authority, I'm putting that in my air quotes, right, said this is the way it has to be, then she was perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, we do some of that work there, but the other work where the other part of that is what they call the grand family.
Mhm.
So there are literally an entire community of grandparents
Mhm.
who have had to take guardianship of their grandchildren
Mhm.
because
Right.
the parents cannot take care of them.
Right.
And so
Mhm.
you've got,
Mhm.
grandparents
Mhm.
who already raised their children.
Mhm.
They're probably
And now they've
retired.
got kids again.
And now they've got little
Mhm.
ones running around the
Mhm.
house.
Mhm.
And see, if they don't, here in Florida, we do not have grandparents' rights. So you can't take custody, right? You can't become the parent.
Okay.
But
Okay.
as
Mhm.
a general, but you can
Mhm.
file for guardianship because if you
Mhm.
don't, what happens is the state steps in and places the children
Right. They go
potentially in
on
foster
foster
care.
care.
They
Mhm.
could do. Now,
Mhm.
they could place them with the grandparents too, but the grandparents want to be able to start making all those
Mhm.
critical decisions like
Right.
where are the kids going to
Mhm.
school, who's the doctor,
I got to
and if
sign the
there's
permission slip.
yeah, and if there's money there,
Mhm.
right, you want to be able to use it to take care of the children, and that means you got to file for guardianship.
Mhm.
So we do a lot of those, and in some ways it's sad, but in other ways it's a beautiful thing that grandparents can
Right.
not only want to
Mhm.
step back into being the
Mhm.
parents, but
Mhm.
can get the authority from a
Mhm.
court to do everything the
Mhm.
parents could do,
Mhm.
which is a
Right.
beautiful thing
Mhm.
because we don't want the state stepping in.
Mhm.
State does a lousy job.
Right. Right. And maybe it is the wake up call that the parent or parents need to go, oh, okay, I need to make changes. Nah, maybe not. But if they do, then maybe they are able to get back into their role as parent. But yeah, it is such a confusing system, and because people, you want to keep the, do they even still say nuclear family? Do we even have you see, that shows my age, right? We had nuclear families, mom, dad, and two kids, 2.3 kids or something,
Yeah.
and a dog, right?
I don't
Oh,
think we're living in the kind of environment
no,
recently
no.
where
Hmm. and
anyway,
and
we won't
yeah.
go down that avenue.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, and there, there's obviously lots of things that have changed over the years, but but you still want to, if possible, keep the family together. But when it's not possible, then steps need to be taken, and the key is to take them before it's too late.
Yeah. Um, which can be sad,
Hmm.
but that's where that personal satisfaction piece comes in, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's sad, but on the other hand,
Hmm.
that's the kind of heartwarming stuff that we enjoy doing.
Hmm.
So
Right, right.
appreciate talking
But
about that.
this did bring me to one of my notes that I wrote. It is hard. It is very hard what you do. And so, how do you make sure that your own mental health is healthy during, all of this?
Yeah, God, that's a great question. That I'm a, I wouldn't say I'm a workaholic, but this has been such a passion for me. So,
Hmm.
my wife is my partner, but I didn't marry her until just over 2 years ago.
Hmm.
So that part of my life took a little bit longer to take 100% responsibility
Hmm.
for. As it turns out, it's almost certainly the single best decision I've ever made.
Hmm.
First of all, I mean, she's an unbelievable,
Hmm.
wife
Hmm.
and mom. But I couldn't have built the business without her. It just wouldn't have happened.
Hmm.
And she's a brilliant lawyer in her own right. But it's hard. One of the things I've had to learn to do is to delegate, right?
Hmm.
I don't have to do every sales call. I don't have to do
Hmm.
all the running the court. So
You
we
have a
have,
staff of 15, you said.
yeah, I mean, I have
Hmm.
two associates. They
Hmm.
run to court now. I
Hmm.
have three,
Hmm.
soon to be four people who are taking incoming calls.
Hmm.
We just hired, started this week, an in-house marketing person to coordinate some of the stuff I either couldn't do or didn't want to do or just didn't have the skill
Hmm.
set for. Um, so, but there was a period of time, and even now, I still probably work 6 days where I've had to be a little bit more careful.
Hmm.
So I think what's important is I've had to let go and delegate and give people a chance to show me that they could do the job better than I can.
Hmm.
And for the most part, they can.
Which is always astounding when I delegate and they do the job better than I do. My first thought is ew, and then my second thought is wow, look what I did. I found good people.
Yeah. So that has been important. A week from this Saturday, my wife and I are going to Montana we're going to go for a week. We've been dying to go out west. So we're going to Montana And then in June, we're going to Utah. We've been dying to see the Western United States. So we're going to do that. And, at least once, if not twice a week, I take my wife out on a date. So last night we went for dinner. That's a date night, right? We make, even though we're working together, we try to make time for just the two of us. I think that's important. And I still try to get to the gym 4 times a week and just do stuff, but I don't switch off very well, Deb. And it's interesting. If I go away, I've noticed the most amount of time I can really go away for is about 10 days. See, I figure it takes
Then
me
you
3
get the
days.
itch.
Right. I figure it takes me 3 days to wind down, and then I have 7 days where I don't do anything. And then after that, I'm itching again. But even when we go away, I don't just completely disconnect. I don't. I haven't yet been able to do that. I think we're getting there. We hired a chief operating officer, and she is really been a game changer. And I think within the next year, she will step into also the CEO role, which means for all intents and purposes, she will run the business. And I'm going to do what I like to do, which is to run my mouth and talk about what we do. Because I think tomorrow I'm speaking at a one-day conference here in town. I do lots of speaking stuff, and I love doing it. I think all that time spent in front of juries, I realize how much I like to talk to people. And so I like to go out and share our mission, because I think it's hard to help people when nobody knows that you're there. It's hard to offer people a solution when nobody knows about it, right? And I put out a lot of content on social media, and which is great. But there's nothing like that, that face-to-face interaction with people, looking them in the eye and say, I can help. And so I enjoy doing that. So tomorrow we'll be in front of about 50 clinicians, and I'm very excited about that, because I get to share my mission. And one of the things I used to love about trial work was I could feel a jury. I didn't win every case. I could feel a jury. So when I'm in front of an audience, I can feel them. I notice who's not paying attention. I notice who's playing their phone. I notice who's falling asleep, right? So I enjoy that. But in order to be able to do that, that means, right, I can't be taking the sales calls. I can't be doing all the marketing. I can't be running to court and drafting pleadings. Those days hopefully are over. So as a general rule, I do not handle any cases anymore.
Okay.
I handled one case for a very close professional contact, because it was his family member who said, I want you to handle this. And of course I was happy to do it. I think it was 2 weeks ago. We got 2 associates and 3 cases got set for hearing. So I ran down to Miami and I did it. I covered, I did the hearing.
Right.
So every once in a while I still enjoy that part of the practice, but I don't want to be doing it all the time. 32 years in the profession, I feel like I want to direct myself in another way. And I do also do, a lot of CLEs, continuing legal educations, credits and presentations. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is helping other lawyers. I've put a couple of lawyers in treatment. I've represented lawyers. I've represented a judge.
Right.
Right?
It's a high stress job.
It is. Our profession is twice as likely to develop a behavioral health issue. And sometimes that behavioral health issue is caused because we don't know anything about business. So,
right. So you might be a fabulous attorney who's going bankrupt.
Yeah. And as my old mentor used to say, what good is a lawyer? How can a lawyer help you if he or she is sitting there worrying about how they pay their rent or their car payment? They can't possibly help you because they can't even help themselves.
Right. Yeah.
So I enjoy that. I enjoy trying to help other lawyers. In the Florida bar, we do a little bit, I know the Florida bar will bend over backwards to help lawyers. So that's been a passion of mine, helping other lawyers.
I love it. And you mentioned the word mission a couple of times, and your firm is definitely mission driven.
Yeah.
And you started with nothing, and now you have all this. What are some of the things that you learned along the way? And I'm gonna take a step back. I think a lot of times when we hear the word lawyer, right, the first thing we think of is, money hungry, all of those various bad words, right?
So it's interesting you say that. My father passed along many words of wisdom to me before I lost him. And one of the things he used to say was, he used to say that he hated all of the lawyers except for me. So I took that to heart, and what I think he was trying to say is, you need to understand, nobody wants to come and hire a lawyer, and
Right.
they sure as heck don't want to give you any money. So if they come to you, they're desperate, right? And
Right.
that means you have to honor that because, we are the gatekeepers to a very complicated legal profession. So, I try to be less lawyerly and more clinician, right? Therapist, somebody who's here to listen to them and give them options based on all my experience and training. The other thing is, my wife, tomorrow I will be in a suit and tie because I'm presenting to,
Yes, you've got your group.
right, I've got my group, but I will tell you, I'm not, I mean, I make all these videos. Most of the time I'm in a t-shirt and baseball cap. And my mother you say to me, I saw
You
you on,
don't look like a lawyer.
like a lawyer. And I'm like, that's the point,
Right.
right?
Yes.
People are intimidated. It's uncomfortable. They don't want to see a guy sitting there in a shirt and tie or too stuffy. They'd rather listen to me in a t-shirt and baseball cap because I'm telling them how it is. When I make a video, it's not scripted. I have a general idea what I want to talk about, right? And every once in a while, one of my cats will wander in front of the camera. It's real. I'm real, right? This is who I am. Now, if I go to court, yeah, I'm going to dress in a suit and tie. I'm going to look
Yeah,
like a
because
million
there's a
bucks.
protocol.
There's a protocol. But so I think just coming across as a little non-stuffy, I think helps.
Right.
But I think it's about listening to people, giving them options, making them feel comfortable that you're not judging them, right? And allowing them to come to the conclusion themselves. But, I think when it comes to building the business, any business, because really when you look at what we've done from a business perspective, there's really no difference between this law firm and a car dealership and a restaurant and a hotel. We're all selling something.
Right.
I happen to sell legal services. But I think it's really about grit, determination, taking massive action, willing to take some risk. For instance, several years ago, I tried television advertising. That was a very expensive mistake.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
But I'm willing to try different things.
Right.
Right. I mean, we didn't write a business plan until maybe 2 years ago. You don't need a business plan to start a business. You need an idea and you need massive action. And so, I know if the phones, if the number of calls we get slows down a little bit, I say to myself, okay, either we're doing something wrong or there's something I need to be doing or that I'm not doing now. And so it's about analyzing. And of course, over the last couple of years, we've gotten much better with our financial control. So I have numbers that tell me, not my gut instinct, not my thumb, but numbers, which don't lie to me, tell me if we're doing, if things are, which way the business is going. And I pay attention to those. And I've got team members, especially my COO, who keeps an eye on those things. But it's about being willing to take a risk. It doesn't have to be a massive risk, right? I'm not going to take a risk that's going to that potentially could break the business, but I'm going to take a small risk and I'm going to try it for 90 days and see if it works. If it works, I'll continue doing it. If it doesn't, that's the universe's way of telling me, okay, that is not the right direction to go. Let's try somewhere else. And so I'm willing to try things.
Right.
And I'm also willing to listen to people that know more about this stuff than me. But I've also stopped taking advice from people who don't know anything about this, namely other lawyers, because they don't know it, unless it's a very successful
because they have
lawyer.
not been trained to do all of this.
So, I don't spend a lot of time, even with the local bar association, partly because I got tired of the mindset. You go in there and all the lawyers would talk about, they were talking about how brilliant they were and what a brilliant ruling they got from the judge. And I'm sitting there thinking, how many people did you actually help this month?
Right.
Tell me that. Did you help 10 people? Did you help 5 people? But see, that I want to hear about. But if you're going to tell me how brilliant you are, which is what most lawyers want to do, which is why people don't like us, because we're busy telling them how clever we are instead of trying to figure out what's really happening in their life. That's what it's all about, right? And again, when you work for a personal growth company, it's about changing your mindset. Now, I'm not perfect, but I'm light years ahead of the average lawyer from a mindset perspective. I may not be the best trial lawyer. I may not be the most successful business person, but when it comes to my mindset, for the most part, I'm light years ahead of people because I've done the work. Okay. And I continue to do the work, and, I'm not perfect, as my wife constantly reminds me, but, there's a reason they call it the practice of law, right?
Yes.
You hope you get a little better the more you do
Right.
it, and I think that's
Right.
what life is about too.
Yeah.
So, but you got to have grit and determination, and not be deterred.
Right. And I love that you are bringing the business aspects in, and this works, this doesn't work. One of the examples that I use every once in a while around here, so I mentioned I'm a marketing person. I grew, when I started, we did direct mail, we did this, we did that. Now there's social, all these things. But there are still places where things work. And a billboard, great example. I am not far from the Cobb County Jail. 10, 15 minutes, right? And there's a giant billboard for bail bondsman / attorney office, right? And I network with officers, and I said something about that one time, and he laughed, and he said, I got to tell you, he said, that is the best product placement in the world. He said, where they get their one phone call? The window looks out at that billboard. And I don't know how that guy managed to get that billboard, but yeah, I mean, he knew, and I've now, not that I look a lot, but I've never seen him advertise anywhere else. I don't think he needs to. But for the people he's trying to work with, that works perfect.
Yeah, we've got. So I'm sure it's the same in your area where the personal injury lawyers are advertising on TV.
They're everywhere. Yes.
They're everywhere, and there is a select group of PI lawyers that are they're advertising on TV, on the weekends, while the basketball or football's on, right? And there's obviously that's a very, very expensive way to market yourself. And there are obviously smaller lawyers, and I was talking to a good friend of mine. He said, "Well, how do I compete with that?" I said, "You don't have to."
Right.
I said,
You can't.
You got to do something. You got to do something different. I don't know. Make fun of yourself. Make a video about yourself on social media. Create a character. I'm like, you know what's great about social media? There's two things I love about social media. Number one, it's free. Number two, it's out there forever.
Right.
How bad can that be? It's free and it's there forever. I mean, that's, and that's one of the reasons I love to do social media, right? Because I can provide value to people and it doesn't cost me anything. And that means I can make it free for them, right? Because I'm a big believer, people, in order to get the right information, right? People should be able to get that. They shouldn't have to pay me to give it to them. And they're sure as heck not going to get the right information from Google. And these days, ChatGPT, because that thing gives all the wrong information.
Oh, it hallucinates.
It hallucinates, correct. And so I'm a big believer in giving people value. And if you look at my content and you say, oh, okay, that resonates with me because I'm also dealing with that problem in my family, then great, you can call our office, you can speak to my intake team, and I don't even charge you for that either. So I'm a big believer in that, but I think that social media is a powerful tool, right? And it allows the small man or the small woman business owner to if you can get through all the noise, to say, here I am, I want to help you, right? You don't need to spend millions of dollars on a TV ad.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's funny because if I ever needed, something along that level, and you never know, right? I don't know that I would pick the guy that was running the thousands and thousands because I know what the value is. I don't know that because I know it's going to cost me. The ones that say we only get paid when you get paid. Okay, but what percentage are you taking? I mean,
Well, they're taking about a third, which they're allowed to take. I mean, there's very strict rules for contingency fee cases. But the question is, how do you decide, who you're going to hire? I mean, that's a personal decision, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you want the name.
And maybe you do. That's okay.
Right.
That's fine too. I mean, I think there's different lawyers for different people, and I mean, I may not be everybody's cup of tea. That's okay. I can't help everybody anyway. So
and you don't
I'm fine
want
with
to.
that.
I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, that kind of comes back to niche marketing, right? You can't serve everybody, and that's okay. So you pick who you want to serve, and you serve them very well.
Yeah, and you know what? Even if for whatever reason we don't work together, I'll still give you all the information you need for free.
Right.
Go to my YouTube channel. You've got
tons of information on your website.
Yeah, it's all there. I want you to have that information, and then you can decide, do I want to pick up the phone and talk to these guys? If you do, great, we'd love to talk to you. And if you don't, that's okay. I'm still going to put the information out there for you so you can get it.
Right. Now, I mentioned when we were chatting before the program, one of the other things that I do, because, nobody ever does just one thing, right?
Mhm.
I work with executives who are facing a cancer diagnosis and dealing with that.
Wow.
And, people are always, who's your best client? Well, I mean, they have to have cancer. And so somebody told me one time, they said, ew, so you're hoping for people to get sick? And that brought me up short. And because, that kind of is what it is. But before I could answer, someone else, this was a networking group, right? Somebody else said, no, people are going to get sick. Deb knows that she can help them. And it's kind of the same way with you, right? You're dealing with people who have addiction, they have mental health issues. You don't want them to be like that, but you can help them when they are.
It's interesting you say that. Sometimes I'll speak to a family and they'll say, we're going to see how things go, but we hope we never have to call you again.
Right.
And I'm like, I hope you don't have to call me again
Yeah.
either. But if you do, I'm here for you, right?
Right.
Because there's always going to be a population of people that need our help. There's always going to be a population of people that get cancer. And so it's okay to be there to help those people. Should I not be there? Should nobody be there? Should you not be there for these cancer patients? I bet if you ask them, they say, thank God Deb is here.
Hopefully, yeah.
I'm sure they do.
Right.
Right.
It's funny. I have a plethora of doctors because I have all sorts of issues that have come from all of this. And my favorite thing is when they say, you don't need to come back. And I tell them, I really do hope that I only ever see you in Walmart. Right?
I love that.
And then when I'm back, they're like, oh God, you're back. But it is, you want to be of service when that service is needed.
Right. That's what we're here to do. Right. And it's okay to build a business around helping people. And my philosophy is if you help enough people, at some point you can help some people for free. Right. Which, and one of the things we've been very blessed to be able to do is, last year we were able to give to a number of different, nonprofits that give money to people. And that's one of the benefits of helping people that can afford to pay you. Then you can afford to give some of that away for free. Right. And that's okay too.
And we see other businesses do that all the time. I mean, they brag about their philanthropic efforts. I used to work for a very large insurance company. I worked for Voya Financial. They were actually called ING when I was there. But I managed a philanthropic budget of close to $1 million. Now, this is 10, 15 years ago. I mean, that is a hefty budget, right? And but we had to make money to be able to have the money to do that. Not everybody liked what we did. But it meant that we could give back. And I think more and more, and I think it's one of the things that we hear that millennials want, right? Millennials want to work for companies that give back. We all do, in whatever way. Maybe they can't give money, but maybe they can give time. Maybe they can do pro bono of whatever it is. Maybe they can donate marketing, whatever. We want to work with organizations that want to give back.
I think it's a beautiful thing. But in order to be able to give something away for free, you have to have a certain amount of people, right? If you want to give away to the 10th person, the first 9 need to pay.
Right.
And they need to know that you're there.
Right. And speaking of that, I mean, one of your things is that you are available 24 hours a day.
Yep.
Not a lot of lawyers say that.
Well, so the phone rings 24/7, and I always tell clients, if I'm awake and you absolutely need me, I'm there for you. I do have to get a little bit of sleep though, so I can function the next day. But yeah, I mean, the phone is answered 24/7. And I think that's important. And it's not unusual for a client to call us. And, 5, 6 o'clock when when I'm getting up or when, one of my associates is getting up. Yeah. I mean, they're expected to call the client back.
Right.
Right. But not every emergency is a true emergency. So we're used to dealing with that too. So.
Right. But yeah, especially with what you're dealing with, many times at 2:00 in the morning when it's an emergency, it's an emergency. And they need to know that you're going to be there.
Yeah. I'm with you. So it's a labor of love.
It is. Well, like we said, mission driven. And I love that. And it was funny when I was preparing, I thought, I've never known anyone who has needed an attorney like you. And then I thought, no, I probably have. And they just never said anything about it, right? That comes back to what I was saying at the very start. People don't talk about this, and they should, because there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of stigma attached to it. It's better than it has been. But I also think that part of the reason people don't talk about it is because they don't know there's an option out there, right? Who would think, well, I know, I'll just call this guy, he's a lawyer, and he has the solution. Part of the reason they don't talk about it is because they don't realize that there is a solution, which is why, I'm a big fan of telling people come to Florida for treatment, because one, we have great treatment, and two, we have all these fabulous laws that will allow you to save that will allow you to make that decision for your loved one they can't make.
Right, right. Well, oh my gosh, Mark, we've only got a couple minutes left. And so, for people who are saying, I really do need to talk to you, how do they find you, and what are the services that you provide?
Yeah, so I mean, there's really two halves to what we do. The bulk of what we do is working with families who have a loved one, who has a long-standing substance use issue, mental health. They probably have been in and out of treatment, if they'll even go. They're probably med non-compliant, may well have been a guest of the state through the either criminal or mental health system, and maybe even overdose. So we're working with those families. That is the bulk of what we do. But part of also what we do is, like I told you, I lost my dad, and 2 days afterwards, I had somebody in the family that had an issue and got sucked into Florida's mental health system. Well, during COVID, a lot of other people were getting sucked into Florida's mental health system, and other lawyers were calling us for help. So these days, I probably file somewhere between 200 and 250 cases every year to get people out of the mental health system.
Right, because they got stuck.
Because they got stuck, and nobody knew they were there. It's very easy to get around the built-in due process requirements of the statute. So once you're there, it's akin to falling into a big black hole. And if nobody knows you're there, well, then they can do whatever they want with you, and they frequently do. So a large part of what we do is getting people out of the mental health system. But again, understanding how this stuff all works together is key and critical. So if you want to talk to me about any of those issues, our main website is mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. That's mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. And if you can't find the website, just Google, attorney Mark Astor. It should take you to our YouTube channel, where I believe, as of the time we're recording this, that's about 930 videos.
Cool.
Talking about all of this stuff. So it's all there for you to just, review and listen to.
Right. And we will, obviously link to it in the show notes. But, I'm looking on your website, and you've got a podcast, you've got a blog, you've got ebook, all of these various things. And so one of the things that I would encourage people is, if they're thinking, well, do we, don't we, what do we do? Even if they're, if they're in a state where they can't work with you, you've got so many great resources to help them where they are.
Yeah, I mean, I can, if they say, look, I'm in Idaho. I'm pretty good at finding a lawyer in another state.
Right.
Because I've got those contacts, and I can find you something that might be able to help you in that state. So, and then we talk about, okay, how do we get your loved one into Florida? Because we're good at getting people here too. Right. And I'm a big fan of getting people here, let them do 3 to 6 months of treatment here. Then they can go back to their home state when they're considerably more stable, and they can finish treatment there.
Right.
The hardest part is that first 3 to 6 months, right? And you need to make sure they stay. And the way to do that is to use the legal system to basically say, you're doing this, right? Until the light bulb goes off.
Right. Right.
And it does with
72-hour holds are not, in some cases, in most cases, nothing is accomplished with a 72-hour hold, except maybe, stopping something from happening right then.
Yeah. I mean, here's when it comes to the 72-hour hold, and a couple of statutes have that provision in there. Here's what's good about that. Number one, I know where the person is. And number two, the doors are locked, so I know they can't run away.
Yeah.
That gives me time to run into court. Yeah. So there's a benefit to that, as long as we make sure that that we're going to get them out of that, whatever that facility is.
What happens in hour 73?
Right. And we have to plan for that appropriately. But the one thing that's predictable about a behavioral health case is it's very unpredictable. Right. And I tell families that. Here's what I can predict. we're going to get crazy sometimes on very short notice. So get comfortable being a little uncomfortable.
Right, right. Well, oh my gosh, Mark, this has been such an interesting discussion, and I hope it has really made people think. That was part of the goal with this, is to just make people think, what if? What if this happened? And, in many cases, it's not what if, it's okay, it's here. And so now what do we do? And so, hopefully that was the goal. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Well, I think if we're talking about business, the great Winston Churchill once said, if you're going through hell, keep going. And I've experienced that myself. But I think if you're a family and you're dealing with a loved one who has these issues, and you've probably already spent a lot of time, energy, and resources trying to solve this problem yourself, I would tell you that there is an option out there. And we'd certainly like the opportunity to find out what's been going on here. What have you tried? What's worked? What hasn't? So we can see if we can offer you an option. And sometimes the best option might not be us, right? And my team knows if we can't help you, we'll tell you we can't help you. If we think that maybe something a little more gentle, like an intervention done with a proper, well-trained interventionist, may be a better option, right? You don't always need the hammer. And if it is, we're going to say, listen, we have this fabulous interventionist. It's a great way to get somebody into treatment. And then we can talk about the legal option. Here's who you should call. So it doesn't always mean you called us, we're going to say, oh, you need us, because you don't always need us. Or maybe we just don't have enough evidence, right? Because I still got to worry about, can I prove the case? If we can't, we're going to say, listen, I don't have enough evidence here. I'd love to help you, but this case, we would lose this case. We won't take your money. Other lawyers might, but we take cases that we think we can win because you're calling me to solve a problem. And if I can't solve it for you, I'm going to tell you I can't solve it. If we can, we're going to say, listen, I think we have an option here. Here it is. You want to give it a shot. So those are my parting words, Deb.
I love it. I love it. Well, I really have been having such a good discussion. I'm Deb Creer. I've been talking with Mark Astor. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.